The sharp crack of a whip slicing through the morning air jolted John Parker from his Texas porch as dawn broke over his 200-acre ranch. A harsh snap that sent a flock of sparrows scattering from the barn roof. His rifle leaping to his hands as the coffee mug slipped from his grip, shattering on the weathered boards with a crash that echoed across the plains, the shards glinting in the first rays of a golden sunrise. He stood tall, his heart pounding like a war drum in his chest, the burn scar on his forearm throbbing as he squinted toward the southern pasture, the lake's silver surface shimmering faintly beyond the horizon, the frantic lowing of cattle and the distant shout of rough voices cutting through the cool March breeze. After yesterday's midday triumph with Mary Ellen teaching Dallas punks a lesson in aim, John had hoped for a day to mend the ranch's fences and the crew's spirits. But now the air thrummed with danger, a new gang rising to threaten his herd. And he'd face it with the steel of his 54 years, and a sharpshooter's eye few knew he possessed. He stormed across the yard to the barn, saddling Dusty with hands steady from decades of grit. The chestnut mare snorting nervously as he swung into the saddle, her ears twitching at the growing clamor, and he rode hard toward the pasture, rifle raised high. The wildflowers along the plains trembling in the early light, their colors vibrant against the dust, his mind racing as he prepared to defend the heartbeat of his land. The air was crisp and thick with the scent of dew and livestock as he spurred Dusty across the open ground, the eastern sky streaking with violet and gold. The lake's edge a distant shimmer reflecting the rising sun, its calm surface a stark contrast to the chaos erupting ahead. He crested a low rise near the southern pasture, reining in with a thud that sank his boots into the soft earth, his eyes narrowing as the scene unfolded like a battle breaking loose. 40 head of cattle, his prized Angus, stampeding in a frantic circle, driven by 7 riders in dark gear, their faces shadowed by wide-brimmed hats, whips cracking like thunder, ropes looping tight around the beasts' necks as they herded them toward a gap in the southern fence. The barbed wire slashed wide, posts splintered and scattered like broken bones. Beyond them, a 8th figure stood on a rise, a burly gang leader in a black duster, his beard thick and matted, a revolver in one hand, a bullwhip in the other, barking orders with a voice that boomed over the herd's panic, dust rising in choking clouds as the cattle lowed in distress. John's blood ran cold, suspicion hardening into fury, his finger tightening on the trigger as he chambered a round, the click swallowed by the herd's thunder, his breath steady despite the rage boiling in his veins. This was no petty theft. Grayson's jail whispers had birthed another assault, and these punks didn't know the sniper they'd awakened. He spurred Dusty forward, rifle raised, the dust stinging his eyes and coating his Stetson as he charged down the slope, the wildflowers flattening under the mare's hooves, their petals swirling in his wake. The old war wound, flaring with a dull ache that shot through his leg with each jarring stride. The riders spotted him, their whips pausing mid-crack, and the gang leader turned, his revolver glinting in the dawn light as he shouted, "Well, look here. Old man thinks he's a hero. Run him down, boys." 2 riders broke off, their horses rearing, whips lashing out like snakes, aiming to drive John back, but he leaned low in the saddle, Dusty galloping full tilt, and raised his rifle with one hand, his sharpshooter's eye locking on the first rider, a wiry thug with a scarred lip, his whip mid-swing. John fired, the crack splitting the dawn, the bullet tearing through the whip's leather, snapping it in two, the rider cursing as his horse skittered, panic flashing his eyes as he fumbled for a pistol, dust exploding around him. The second rider, a stocky brute, charged, rope twirling, aiming to lasso John from the saddle, but John shifted Dusty sharp, the mare pivoting with precision, and he fired again, the shot ringing true, the bullet slicing the rope clean, the loop falling limp as the brute roared, drawing a revolver, his horse thundering closer. John didn't flinch, his aim perfect even at a gallop, and fired a third shot, the bullet grazing the man's hand, sending the revolver flying into the dirt, the rider howling as he clutched his bloodied fingers, his horse veering off in a blind panic. "Back off!" John roared. Voice steel over the chaos, Dusty charging through the dust as he swung the rifle toward the gang leader, who raised his revolver, scoping John with a sneer, the cattle surging between them, hooves pounding the earth in a frantic rhythm. The leader fired, the shot cracking loud, the bullet whizzing past John's ear and splintering a fence post. The echo rolling like thunder over the plains, but John urged Dusty faster, weaving through the stampeding herd, his sharpshooter's eye locked on the target, and fired. A single shot, perfect and true, the bullet tearing through the leader's hat, knocking it clean off his head, the man staggering back with a curse, his revolver wavering as fear overtook bravado. "You're done," John bellowed, reining Dusty to a halt amidst the herd, rifle raised, towering over the chaos, the lake glowing gold beyond the dust as the sun climbed higher. The remaining riders froze, ropes slack, their horses snorting, and John advanced, dust caking his hands and face, the plains pulsing beneath his boots. "Who's paying you?" he growled, kicking a fallen whip aside, pressing the barrel to the leader's chest, the man's beard trembling with sweat. The leader spat, blood flecking his lips, voice ragged. "Lang, Dallas cash. Grayson's orders, jail call, take the herd. Burn you out. Didn't know you'd shoot like that." His eyes darted to the ridge, fear flickering, and John's rage flared, the cattle's lowing a bitter testament as he hauled the leader up, slamming him against a post, the metal creaking, dust swirling as the man slumped, defiance fading into pain. Headlights flared through the dawn. Frank's truck roaring across the pasture with a growl, mud spraying, Mary Ellen's mare beside it, shotgun gripped tight, Jake and Ethan piling out, Tom with rope, Sarah and Matt trailing. Faces fierce in the rising light. "What's this?" Frank barked, pistol gleaming, eyeing the scattered cattle, the sprawled riders. John spat dust, voice rough, shoving the leader forward. "Grayson's gang. Thought they'd take the herd. Didn't know I shoot perfect on the move." Mary Ellen swung down, boots thudding, her voice steady. "Shot him good. Sniper on the saddle, John." Ethan charged, grabbing a rider, wrenching him up, voice raw. "You hit our cattle?" "I'll—" John gripped his shoulder, steadying him, rifle close, the lake shimmering below. "Enough, they're done," John said, tone steel over the breeze. "Ethan, round the herd. Jake, don't dying. Hargrove's next." Jake tossed rope to Ethan, who nodded, hands steady as he whistled Dusty over. Mounting to corral the cattle, trust forging in each loop, Tom binding the riders as Frank kicked a revolver clear, Mary Ellen covering with her shotgun, Sarah calling Hargrove. Matt tracing the leader's gear. "Dan, South Pasture, 7 down, cattle theft, Grayson's hit," Sarah said, voice crackling. The sun rose higher, wildflowers emerging from the dust. When Hargrove's patrol car screeched in, lights cutting the dawn, deputies cuffing the riders, their gear bagged. "What's the play, John?" Hargrove asked, badge glinting, the breeze tugging his hat. John stood tall, rifle slung, voice steady, blood drying on his sleeve. "Lang's puppets, Grayson's pulse. Herd safe, they're not." Hargrove nodded grim. "They're booked, felony theft, assault. Your aim's a legend. Stay sharp." Midday baked the plains. The crew gathered, coffee steaming, Ethan firm, the map marked with triumph, cattle lowing steady. Sniper held, Frank said, pistol gleaming. "But Grayson's alive. Watch the pulse." John met Ethan's gaze, voice steel. "You held. Herd's ours. Stay true." Across the ridge, a light blinked, binoculars then gone. Heat chamber round. The click loud, ready for the next pulse.